Welcome back to the Pro Football Hall of Fame for another installment of our Pro Football Hall of Fames Before the Snap series. Today, featuring a very, very special guest from out west. He's up early. Good start to his day, and we'll get to his name and his job here in a second. But if you've never tuned in for this program or this is your first time watching, well, what is Before the Snap? This is a program where you as a student in high school or college or even a young professional can tune in and learn a little bit about what it takes to have a career in and around the NFL. Not only what it takes, but all the different career opportunities that are out there. And this program is here for you to learn about that and ask questions and start your networking journey. If you've tuned in with us before, we are so grateful to have you tuned in again. My name is Jake Ray, and I'm the Youth Education and Leadership Manager here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, where it's our mission to honor the greatest of the game, to preserve its history, to promote its values, and to celebrate excellence together. And those values we promote are those of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and honesty, all of which made our 371 Hall of Famers the best football players and minds and front office staff there are, but also made them great teammates, great people outside of the facility, and great members of their community, and truly can make you a great student or a great member of your organization. Before we do get started, some thank yous I'd like to pass out. First and foremost, I'd like to thank all those teachers, administrators, and professors that are either watching us live right now, sent this link to their students who are watching us, or you're watching this in your classroom 3, 5, 6, 9, 10 months from now. We want to thank you for allowing us to be a small part of your students' learning experience. Secondly, we got to thank our students. Like we say every week, this program is here for you to ask questions and learn. Nathan and I, like always, we have all these questions we're ready to ask, but nobody wants to hear from us. We want to hear all the great questions that the students have today. So if you're tuned in right now, let us know where you're watching from. Drop your name and your school in the live chat there. Give us a like, give us a comment. Let's see where we can get all of our students tuned in from today. And we'll be encouraging you students to ask questions throughout the program today. So without further ado, we'd like to first welcome and thank our guest here today, Mr. Will Kiss of the Las Vegas Raiders, who enters his 16th season with the Raiders and the 11th as the head of the organization's communications and public relations department. Served as the assistant director of public relations and media relations from 2008 to 2012, and currently oversees and facilitates the execution of the team's media policy and overall communication strategy, while serving as the primary media contact for both football and business operations. He's managed communications efforts for 6 international games and has been invited by the NFL to serve on the league's public relations staff for 2 Super Bowls and 6 Pro Bowls. Currently serves on the Media and Public Relations Committee for Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas. He graduated from the University of San Francisco, so has been in the Bay Area a long, long time, with both a bachelor's and master's degree. So without further ado, we'd like to welcome Will Kiss to Before the Snap. Will, welcome.
Thank you, Jacob. I really appreciate it, and that sums up my career here with the Raiders pretty well. I've really been privileged to be part of the organization since 2008, back when the team was in Oakland, and I was part of that transition moving here to Vegas. And it's been a wonderful transition for me. It's been good because I got to break out of my mold a little bit. I'm a Bay Area guy, as you mentioned, and the Raiders, of course, are so important to the history and the tradition and the culture there in the Bay Area. And to be able to bring that here to Las Vegas has really been awesome. And I want to thank you guys for having me on. This is such an outstanding program you guys run. And I was just thinking when we were chatting before, like, how cool would this have been to have this opportunity when I was in high school. I probably would have been a lot further ahead than I actually was, to bring this to the youth out there and the people who are aspiring for jobs in pro football and elsewhere, and just to learn and have that experience and talk to people, I think is really, really awesome. So it's tremendous work you guys are doing.
Awesome. We appreciate that. We don't take that for granted. Nathan and I have said the same thing ourselves many times during this program on how we would have loved to have this when we were in high school and college as well, to learn all about the careers out there. So first question we always like to ask Will is 10,000 foot view. What do you, Will Kiss, do with the Raiders, and what's your day-to-day job look like?
Yeah, that's an amazing question, and it's broad. I try to summarize it as best I can when people ask me what I do, and jokingly I tell people, well, I return a lot of emails, so it's, but I actually do. It's more than that. It's kind of I work really closely with the team, with the players and the coaching staff and the administrators and the senior executives on kind of trying to craft the message of the team. So as how when you're thinking about how you contribute to the team off of the football field, it's kind of like, how do we present ourselves? How do we interact with the public? How do we interact with the media? And my job is really kind of part gatekeeper, part advisor, part, writer, strategist, really kind of crafting the message and helping the media, both locally and nationally, to have access to our team, our players and coaches, and helping these guys and women tell the story of the team and themselves as well too. So, my job as a PR person is kind of be behind the scenes and kind of help bring the stories of these players and these coaches and this great organization to the world out there, to the fans and through the media. So in a nutshell, that's kind of my job. If you break it down a little bit further, we do a lot of, talking points, interview preparation, facilitating media availabilities, making sure that the local and the national media has access to our players, obviously, hopefully in a positive way at all times. And our coaches and everybody else in the organization. So it's really broad, and you become a catch-all too, because we're one of the few departments that really gets to interact on an everyday basis with every other department in the building. So in that way, we kind of touch the entire organization in one way or another. So we do a lot of internal communications and a lot of guiding and a lot of strategy, as I mentioned before. So in a real broad lens view, that's kind of what we do. We're basically the conduit between the football team and the public.
Obviously, a lot of different touch points and so many different things that is involved with your job. I'm can only assume you're getting phone calls at 2 a.m. in the morning when there's a news story that's got to go out, or a breaking news, something has happened. So, unfortunately, yesterday evening we lost the Hall of Famer Dick Butkus. So, our team has to go through those protocols to get that message, to get a message from our president, Jim Porter, to get that out to the media, to the masses. Right. So in your scenario, how does that work?
Yeah.
Sign a new coach. You get a trade that happens breaking overnight. What's the process like? And how is that different when it happens at noon on a Wednesday versus at like 11:30 p.m. on a Saturday? What's the differences between those, and what's that process like?
Sure. It's not to sound too cliche, right? But success is kind of when preparation meets opportunity. So in that way, you want to be prepared and on your toes and aware of things that are out there. I think probably the thing that I want to happen least is to be blindsided or not be informed before making a decision or making a statement. So we released our own statement on Dick Butkus yesterday, and of course you can't account for things like that, but you also want to be able to digest the information and speak to your key stakeholders, like something that's very, very important in my job is to have access to the decision makers in the building. So that's a process where I can, present options to leadership and decide which way we want to go. Now, if something's happening in the middle of the night, that tends to not be great news, right? So you have to be diligent and organized and prepared and present options, and you really have to be sensitive to the situation depending on what it is. So I think a heightened sense of awareness is optimal. I think you have to be aware of the potential pratfalls out there, and also aware of the conditions that you're working in. So if you're communicating something regarding the passing of a Hall of Fame player like Mr. Butkus, I had the privilege of meeting him. He came out and presented Khalil Mack with an award in Alameda when we were based there, and so he does have a connection to the organization. So you have to be aware of things like that. So I think some institutional knowledge is very, very helpful in this position, and especially when you're dealing with situations that can be unpredictable.
We get the question a lot here, specifically at the Hall of Fame, when we're interviewing interns or entry-level employees. They ask us, how do I need to know the game of football? Obviously we say it's a big plus if you know the game, but in a role like yours, in working in the NFL for an NFL franchise and in sports in general, how important is it to know the game and know how the game functions? And is there obviously a benefit to that? But when you're looking through resumes of these college students who are tuned in today, is that something you want to see? Is that something you don't really care about? What's your thoughts on, knowing the actual game?
That's a tremendous question, and to be honest, the truth is there's not a clear cut answer. There's levels, right? So could I function in my position with having a very, very limited knowledge of football? To an extent, I think to work in this industry and to work at doing what I do, you most likely have started as a fan at some point. So you have some knowledge of football and what's out there. Now, the technical, like blocking schemes, routes, game planning other teams, like, no, I'm not, I am not versed in that. And I wouldn't attempt to have those conversations on that level with the coach or with the scout or anybody else. Now, I think that you continually want to learn. And if you have a passion for football and that's something that you enjoy doing, my wife gives me a hard time that on Saturdays I'm watching college football all day. And then if we're not playing on Sunday, I'm watching Red Zone and all this. So, I love football. I mean, that's what drew me to it. I love sports. I love the NFL, and that's kind of why I am where I am, to be honest with you. Now, the intricacies of the game and the ins and outs, I feel like I'm constantly trying to learn. I do think you have to have a general knowledge of it. I do. Yeah. Basic things like, positions and who does what and what coaches are responsible for and that type of thing, I think is beneficial to anybody that wants to work in an industry, right? I mean, I think if you're going to work in, for a company and maybe that produces cars, then you have to know the parts of the cars and you have to have a general knowledge of what's, what goes into making a car and selling a car. I think that's instrumental to anything you do in life. But I think a general knowledge is very, very beneficial. I think a deep knowledge is even more beneficial. But at the same time, we're not speaking to the media and the public on the levels of those intricacies, so you have to kind of have an awareness.
We've talked a little bit about, the grand scheme of things is getting the news out there when something news breaks, when this big news happens. But want to focus on what a game day looks like, because obviously there's your Monday to Saturday, Monday to Friday, your job that you're doing. Probably not a normal 9 to 5, but we'll just say for consistency's sake, your Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 job, you're going into the office and doing. But then game day comes along. What does a game day look like for somebody in your position? And what is one or two things that might be those things outside the box that you have to prepare for every week, even though you might not have to do it?
Yeah, that's a great question again. Now game day is what you kind of work for. So luckily in the NFL, we get to work Monday through Saturday preparing for the game. So Sunday for me is almost kind of like the payoff. That's why you work, is you want to be in the building on a Sunday and you want to be watching your team and hoping you win. So there's all kinds of responsibilities you have, everything from credentialing the media to laying out the press box to coordinating interviews with the broadcast network to attending security meetings and then the officials meeting with the head official to go over the mic reports and who's inactive, and working with the football operations department and the game entertainment department and the community relations department if you're having community events on site, to ticketing, to luxury premium seating, to working with the general manager, working with, anything can happen on a game day. And really what happens on game day kind of dictates the rest of the week, right? So on the field and off the field. So there's going to be things that went well, things that didn't go well. And that's going to kind of, gauge basically how you attack the week and what your responsibilities are that week. So pretty much everything happens on game day. So there's one or two things that could happen that maybe you don't expect to happen is, maybe something happens that's fan related that's not great, that you have to be aware of and put together a statement on, or take some action publicly on to make sure we're communicating to our patrons in that way. Or on the field, if there's an injury, God forbid, that you have to address in some way, and you want to be sensitive to the situation and really have all the facts. So I hate to say it this way, but anything can happen at any time, right? So you have to kind of be prepared, and you have to pay attention, and you have to, you can't get lost in the ebbs and flows of the game. You have to pay attention to the game, but also pay attention to everything around you.
I got one more question, and then we're going to we got some awesome questions rolling here from our college students, but I want to talk a little bit about something that just happened here a few weeks ago. You see, obviously we're from Ohio. We're going to talk, we're big Ohio State fans. Nathan joked I had a Ohio State pullover on before we started. Asked if I was going to keep it on or not. you see Ryan Day has this big emotional post-game interview with NBC. And then there's this video comes out where he's by the head PR, head media guy for the Buckeyes, and he says, "Hey, Coach Day, take a deep breath." And he looks at him and says, "Watch this," and then goes up on stage. For somebody in the media role, in the PR role, what goes through your mind when your head coach turns to you and goes, "Watch this," before he steps up to start answering questions from the media?
Well, I'm sure he's holding his breath. I think, look, you want to make sure that your coach is prepared and as much as possible calculated with his answers and understands what's coming his way, and present himself in a professional and composed manner. But at the same time, you don't want to harness that energy too much. I mean, we're all here because we're passionate, and who's more passionate than the head coach after a big win, right? So at the same time, you have to kind of strike a balance there. It's a good advice for him to, hey, take a deep breath. Okay, think about it for a second. That's why they have the 10-minute cooling off period before media is allowed in the locker room. 10 to 12 minutes, and it's for everybody to kind of digest what happened. Football is a highly emotional game. So win, lose, whatever happens on the field, right after the game is a tough position to put a player or a coach in, but it's the world we live in. That's what we do. And that's what the fans want to see. That's what they digest. So you have to really kind of strike a balance. And that's the PR person's job, is to kind of, hey, take a deep breath, calm down. Let's evaluate the situation. Okay, now you want to show some passion, some fire? Great. That's awesome. And that's why some of the most viewed stuff on social media is the post-game locker room speeches after big wins. That stuff's fun. It's fun when you can be a part of that.
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to turn things over to Nathan Martin here. We've got a lot of questions coming in from our students, so we're going to let Nathan go through all those. So Nathan, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Jake, and Will. Thanks for being a part of the program with us today. Students, you guys have done a great job submitting questions. I just want to encourage you guys to continue to do that, and continue to let us know which schools you're watching from. Want to give your university or college a little bit of a shout out when we get to your question. Will, first question from our student. This is from Charlie, a student at Arizona State University. How do you, in your role, prepare the employees? I mean, there's a lot of people working for the Raiders for these stressful situations, whether it's players or it could just be someone working in youth football, for stressful situations where they might be asked questions by the media, how to answer those questions. Kind of in your role, how do you help prepare really any Raiders employee for those stressful questions they might get?
Yeah, and again, I think preparedness is the most important thing. So it's my job to know what media is on site, right? And who might be speaking to the media, identifying the right person to speak to the media. And then also, for instance, Coach McDaniels probably hates me for this, but before the night before he does a morning media availability, I'll send him like a 3-page document, with topics that are out there, storylines, talking points, things we want to emphasize. And how much he reads, it really depends on how much time he has, and then I'll go through it again with him. So it's probably a dialed down version of that is something that I would give to an executive or somebody on our community relations team that's going to be doing some media. We want to have the points that need to be that we want to be emphasized, and then any potential questions that we can kind of handle as they come. Now, there's always going to be stuff out of left field that maybe you don't quite see, so you want to give your person who's speaking some stock things that they can say to kind of get through that. And then you also want to have the discussion with the media on beforehand, because the last thing you want to do is have somebody blindsided who's speaking publicly for the organization. So you want to kind of discuss the parameters and control the situation as much as possible.
How much of that preparation is handled? I'm just curious, and the students might be as well. Like, how much of that is handled on you? You're creating that 3-page document, or do you have a team of people that you're working together to create that?
We have a team. Yeah, definitely. It's definitely not me. It's me. Yeah, we have a PR department of 5 people now, who are all really, really outstanding and learning every day and getting better and do a tremendous job. And preparing people for interviews is only, part of the job. They were producing notes and content and coordinating interviews and facilitating media availability. So it's really a 24-hour kind of proposition. And then as you're going through the work week, you have your certain ththings that have to get done kind of every week as you inch towards the game day. And then there's going to be things that come up outside of that as well.
Yeah, I assume you had a team behind you, but I thought that'd be good for the students to hear there's multiple opportunities. You don't just have to be, I guess, the head guy in the department. There's several people that work with you and under you there. Our next question comes from Riley, and this is kind of a good transition here. Riley's a student at Middlebury College. For you personally, Will, how did you get drawn to media relations, public relations? Can you kind of tell us a little bit about your journey there and the process that you had getting into this field?
Yeah, definitely. So when I was in school, in college, my thought was, and what I believed I wanted to do was I wanted to be a history teacher and coach baseball. So I was a baseball player in high school and a little bit in college and that type of thing. And so I figured that would kind of be my route. Now I was always very into history, very into sports journalism. And when I did a sports management program at USF, and the real USF, University of San Francisco. And I found out that there were opportunities in PR. Now this presented an opportunity to kind of play to my skill set, which was writing, research, and also give me an opportunity to work very closely with the athletes and the coaches, with the actual team, which I thought was something that it was really something that I wanted to do, because I enjoy that part of it. I enjoy the interaction with the players and the coaches and helping them succeed at this part of their job. So that's kind of what drew me to it. My very first internship in public relations, because I worked in the Arena Football League with the San Jose SaberCats in player personnel. So I did some scouting and evaluation there. Of course, coached high school baseball, did a multitude of jobs throughout college and grad school, sold auto parts and everything else. We don't need to get into all that. But my very first internship was with the Raiders in their public relations department back in 2001, and which was a tremendous experience. Albeit unpaid, but it exposed me to a whole realm of work that I really didn't know existed, and it kind of enabled me to kind of really get a glimpse into it at a very, very high level. And coming out of that internship, I realized that I probably needed a lot of work, and I needed to get a lot more experience if I was going to make this a career. And I after that, I was very, very fortunate to go work in college athletics for 7 years, and I had a fantastic experience there, working at Stanford University and then the West Coast Conference office in San Bruno, getting a league office perspective, also a campus perspective, before coming back as the assistant director in 2008. So that's kind of my trajectory. Really, public relations and media relations married my love of sports, my love of research and writing, and then also my love of working with athletes and coaches. So that was kind of like the perfect storm there for me.
What I really took from that, and hopefully our students saw too, is like how getting that internship, maybe it wasn't something in 2001 that you were like, I want this internship, this is going to be my career, this is my passion. Right. It really just opened your eyes to, oh, wow, this is amazing. This is something I could see myself doing. And we always encourage students, internships can have the opposite effect, but that's not a bad thing. It's you're still getting experience, and you might learn, I could not do this for a job. I could not do this for a career.
Well, to be honest, that was my experience with high school with coaching. I was, I enjoyed coaching. I had a passion for baseball, and I was fortunate enough to coach at the high school level while I was in graduate school in my early 20s, and I almost got to the point where I realized that working scholastically as a teacher or a coach probably wasn't going to be something that I was going to be super happy with. And as time went on, and that's okay. It's and you have to, like you said, you get as many experiences as you can, and you kind of find out what you want and what you have a passion for. And it's a process. When I was in high school, I couldn't tell you what I wanted to do. That was a process. So, luckily some people, or fortunately for some people, they're a little bit more aware and motivated, but that's not for everyone. So.
Yeah. So I just want to encourage the students there, seek out those opportunities. You could be like Will, and you find something you're passionate, with that internship, you find something that you're not, any experience you can get, volunteer, whether it's a formal internship, it doesn't matter. It can help you in that. We keep using the word the process, but it can help you in that process of discovery as to what career might be of interest to you. And this is maybe something that's not really connected to your career, but this is a student, Mark, had a question, and I'm guessing they might have a major that's related to this. They're just curious, within the NFL, working for either the league or teams, what types of careers are available? And I'm sure you can speak to this, just kind of in accounting and finance, like what types of things do you see with coworkers and colleagues there with the Raiders?
Well, think about it this way. So the Raiders are a football company. right? So within that, we have departments just like any other company that you would see out there, from human resources to finance to community outreach to grounds and fields to it's all, everything kind of surrounds the football team, but it's an organization just like any other business organization out there. And so there's a multitude of opportunities, and I would encourage somebody who's looking for what is in an organization that they might want to work for, is to go to the staff page on everybody's website and just see what the department breakdowns are, and see what your interests are, where that aligns, and see what kind of opportunities are there. And usually most professional sports organizations are pretty good about listing their staffs, and you can kind of see what department. So it's not just football, or it's not just people that touch the football organization or football operation, football team, but it's all across the spectrum.
Yeah, no doubt. I think, for me getting, a job here at the Hall of Fame, it really opened my eyes to the same thing that you're kind of alluding to, is like, there's jobs just like any other business. You think of traditional business jobs, it's just you're centered around you're centered around Raiders football. We're centered around the Pro Football Hall of Fame and these great players that have played the game. But the bills got to get paid, and there's maintenance jobs, and
no doubt
there's youth football, whatever it may be.
And that takes me back to when I was young and still thinking about what I wanted to do and what path I wanted to go. And every time I love sports, but every time I would think about sports, I'd be like, well, I don't really play, and I don't coach, and what would I do? But and now there's more and more opportunities, which is pretty tremendous. It's pretty fun to see.
Yeah, there's probably hundreds of opportunities outside of playing and coaching. So hopefully our students see that and are encouraged by that. One more question for me, and then I'll send it back to Jake, and I'll kind of go back through all the questions. The students are doing a great job continuing to submit questions. But this is from Jonathan, a student at the University of Tampa. And Jonathan, highlights the fact that Vegas has hosted the Pro Bowl. You guys are set to host the Super Bowl. So how much of this content, when you have these marquee events coming, is pre-planned? You're able to plan it with your team versus like, hey, this happened, now we got to get something out because this happened, with a big event like that.
With a big event like that, luckily, that it's coming. So the planning and the preparation started for it back in, the beginning of the year. Actually, probably when we announced that the Super Bowl was coming, because that's when the host committee started forming, and then we assist the host committee in a lot of things. For instance, as Jacob mentioned, I'm on the PR subcommittee for the host committee. So there's a ton of events and leading up to it, and everything is to put Las Vegas on display, for that week. And the game, of course, too. So we've been involved in the planning process. Now, this is the first time I've been part of a host city. So a lot of that is kind of new to me. The events leading up to it and the things you're trying to do to kind of promote the city and the stadium and the experiences that people are going to have. But a lot of that is pre-planned for now. Now, when you get to the week, and there's thousands and thousands of media here, and there's events going on everywhere, I'm sure you're going to have to deal with things as they come up a little bit more, just because that's the nature of it. But big tentpole events like that the NFL hosts, like the draft or the combine, even in Indianapolis, or the Pro Bowl that's been out here the last couple of years, you have the benefit of doing some planning.
Mm-hmm. And I think that just goes back to the point that you've kind of made from the beginning of the program, like preparation is critical, in this field, especially where you're at. Preparation can alleviate a lot of stress and problems on the back end. And I don't think it just applies to media relations, public relations. I think that's in any job. The more prepared you are, the better you're going to be students. If you're prepared for that test, if you're prepared for that interview, it's going to alleviate a lot of that stress that you would feel in the moment. So I think that's just a great life lesson that we can pull from what you've kind of been saying and whatnot. So
and also, you don't know when opportunity is going to arise. So maybe when that job opening comes up that you've dreamt of forever, you can't, there's no way of knowing when it's going to become available to you. So if that's something that you're interested in and that's something you aspire to, then it would benefit you to prepare as much as possible.
No doubt. Well, Jake, I'm going to send it back to you and start looking through some of these other student questions you got.
Awesome. Thank you, Nathan. So, talking about the game of football, obviously you've been ingrained in it pretty much your entire life after, you graduated college and started working. We here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I'm sure at the Raiders as well, we're unapologetically football. We know that there's all these great things out there that people can talk about, that teach you these values, teach you these life lessons, but we think football does it the best. So within your role, How have you seen the game of football impact the lives of the players, coaches, fans who love this game so much? And what are some of those life lessons you've seen passed along through the game?
Well, like if I could just get personal for a minute, I mean, I think I can probably speak to it the best. There was a marketing campaign, Football is Family, and I can't underscore how accurate that is. So, working with the Raiders, I've had the benefit of my children, my daughter and my son, kind of growing up in and around football. So they're, our lives were kind of dictated by the schedule or who we were playing this week, or if dad was going to be out of town, or if, all these things that were happening. And we've had the benefit of having so many great moments of our lives as a family be within the context of football. So, and my daughter is a freshman at the University of Mississippi now, and she's been able to work in the football department there. So that's something that she's identified as that she wants to be a part of moving forward as well. So, and I'm just a PR guy, so I'm not a player or a coach or, anything like that, but it's been really beneficial to me and to our family to be around it. My wife, not a football fan at all. But now she loves it, and she follows the ebbs and flows and watches the games and knows what's going on and reads all the media, and for better or for worse. And so it's been a really special thing for us to be around football for our children's lives, as they grew up. So my son, who's a freshman right now in high school, he was born my second season with the Raiders. So he doesn't really know anything, different than dad works for the Raiders. And, and he's all into fantasy football and, who's playing quarterback and who's doing this and that. So it's been really, really special. So, on a small level, that's on a very personal level. On a greater level, I think football touches everybody from being the ultimate team game. If you have the opportunity to participate in it, I think there's not a sport that teaches you the importance of teamwork and the importance of doing your job right, quote unquote, doing your job well because other people are depending on you, and then working in the context of a team, being part of a greater whole. And then always striving for success as a greater whole. So, you don't want to let your teammate down. You don't want to let your coach down. So you're going to do the best that you possibly can. And football also teaches you in ways it's very humbling to work in football because, there's times when things don't go so well, or there's times when you're in the middle of the season and maybe you're not doing so well and you got to dig deep and you got to keep showing up and you have to be present and you got to keep trying to improve. And all these things that you hear, coaches and players say, they say them constantly because they're true. So, you want to become the best version of yourself. You want to compete at a high level. You want to be the best you can possibly be. And then you surround yourself with people that have that same growth mindset that hold you to that standard and you hold them to that standard. And then in that way, the teamwork kind of just can come together and can kind of really give you a passion. Plus it's a lot of fun, right? Like I was saying earlier, my payoff is working at the games on Sunday. When I was a kid, I couldn't go to football games. I always wanted to be at a football game. Well, now that's what I do every Sunday. And I can't say that, that means a lot to me. And I don't take it for granted. I don't take it lightly. So that's a long way of answering your question, but
no, I it's a great way to put it because you echoed all the same sentiments that we have here at the Hall of Fame, and we know how important the game is because we have 371 Hall of Famers whose lives have been impacted by the game and have a platform to show that, and we get the awesome piece to share all that history and to share all those stories of how the game of football has impacted their lives. So along that, not only do we get to share those stories, we get to showcase them as well. And what better way to showcase the Pro Football Hall of Fame than actually to go live out to the museum right now. So we've got the Director of Youth Education and Leadership, Jerry Shockey, out in the museum, probably in the most famous part of our building. I'm not going to give too many secrets away. We're going to let Jerry go ahead and take it away from here.
Jake, thank you very much. And Will, thank you for connecting in. All the students that are connected in from across the country, the high schools, colleges, and beyond, for this Before the Snap to learn more about the PR world, the communications world. An awesome opportunity, number one, to get insight into a career in the NFL, but also number two, make sure you take advantage of the LinkedIn profile. Make sure you follow up with Will, make sure you stay connected, network, all those important things to get a job in and around the NFL. And students, make sure you also submit your questions, state your name, your university that you're tuning in from, and make sure to submit that question so that Nathan can interject those questions throughout the program. So as Jake said, I want to welcome you guys to the Pro Football Hall of Fame Gallery. This is probably our most popular and space inside. It's busy right now. I have people zipping behind me here as we're waiting to go live and all this stuff. So it's a great day to be here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And so in this room, we have bronze bust of 371 of the greatest players, coaches, and contributors of all time. And recently, the Raiders have added some, obviously. So behind me, I know it's a little bit distant. I want to kind of get everyone in here. So you have Tom Flores over here. You have Cliff Branch. You have Richard Seymour, and others. And so, Will, thinking about this, in your role working with communications and public relations, I guess kind of a two-part question here I have for you. How do you get notified, like working with us at the Hall of Fame and the press releases and working on dual, how we promote things out on social media and press releases and all those kind of things? How'd that work with these Hall of Famers? And then also, I guess as part two of that would be just with any major announcement, especially when it's like an honor. So let's say like a Walter Payton Man of the Year award winner, or maybe someone that's getting their jersey retired or something like that. What's that? Walk us through that process.
Sure. I mean, those are the fun things to be a part of, when we're trying to, emphasize or push Tom Flores or Cliff Branch or Richard Seymour, the communication on the front end is working a lot with the Hall of Fame committee, the media that has influence, making sure we're promoting the right things surrounding these guys and educating the public on why they should be Hall of Famers, and when you have a personal relationship with some of these guys, like I worked with Richard Seymour, I knew Cliff Branch pretty well, and I worked with Tom Flores. He was our radio color analyst for years and years. So you have a tremendous amount of respect and really reverence for these people and what they've contributed, what they've meant to you, and what they meant to the organization and to football in general. So those become really, really they're passion projects. And we have a really outstanding alumni relations department that keeps all of our former players and coaches connected and part of the Raiders family. And I think that that's something that the Raiders probably do, at the top level. And I think that that's really awesome to be a part of. So in terms of putting together collateral or making sure that things are, materials are ready and educational pieces are done, I think that for me is a really, really fun project. And then becoming part of the announcement and the festivities. We got to play in the Hall of Fame game last year, and we were in and around. And of course, Coach McDaniels, who was in his first year with us, is from Canton, and his father's a legendary coach there. And so, like, to have all these things kind of intersect and at one place, it really kind of made my job easy, to be honest with you, because the storylines really sold themselves and there wasn't a whole heck of a lot of pitching that I had to do. But there was definitely some management of the media attention and getting the messaging out and interacting with our fans and with our alumni. And it was really a privilege to be a part of it. That was my first visit to Canton, and that room was tremendous. So I was like a kid in a candy store going around to the players that I grew up watching play and, taking pictures of their busts and sending them to friends back home and, getting into our debates about, different quarterbacks and whatever. I mean, it's just so tremendous. It really underscores, why we're drawn to this, the passion that we all have and the greatness that we witness. And some of us are privileged to support, on the field, on and off the field, and actually having a small, very minuscule piece of a player or a coach who gets this honor, being able to help him or her do this piece of their job. It's all these things are really intertwined. So it was a tremendous honor to be part of the whole Pro Football Hall of Fame experience. And that's kind of how we assist as a department.
Well, even though I'm not from the area, I grew up for a couple of years as a Raiders fan. I went through that real men wear black phase in the late 80s. I was 11, 12 years old. The Bo Jackson commercials, I read Bo Knows Bo.
Yeah.
I have a lot of intimate connections, just childhood memories with the Raiders. So,
well, I always say, everybody might not be a Raider fan, but at some point, everybody wants to be a Raider.
So. Yep. Real men wear black. That's all I can say.
That's right.
So, hey, thank you, Will. I appreciate your time here today. Students, again, remember to get those questions in. And Jake, I'm going to send it back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jerry. Well, I got one more question for you before we throw it over to Nathan for some more student questions. You've been involved with the Raiders since 2008, been involved in sports since you graduated college. We always like to ask, you're retired, you're in the lazy boy at home talking to the grandkids, and they say, Grandpa, what's your favorite memory or favorite moment that you got to be a part of while working in sports? If you had to pick that moment right now, what would that moment be for you?
I don't think it's happened yet.
Okay, I like that answer. I like that answer.
I'm not trying to dodge the question because there's been so many outstanding moments. There's so many, wonderful people and mentors I've had and friends I've made, and we're all connected, and it's been such a tremendous experience and tremendous blessing to be a part of the organization and to be able to work in sports and professional athletics at this level. So it'd be hard for me to say just one. I think it's coming, and I can't wait for it.
Probably alluding to that Lombardi Trophy, maybe making its way here from our halls in Canton out to Las Vegas. Maybe we'll be there one day, but I think that will take the cake for sure.
I think you're right.
All right, Nathan, go ahead and whenever you're ready, take it away with some more of our student questions.
Yeah, thanks again. Question here is from Dontavius, and Dontavius is a student from North Carolina A&T. And Dontavius is curious, you're working with external, whether it's other teams, it's sponsors, it's media members, whatever it may be, and how do you, in your role, deal with all these different parties, and like you're trying to protect the image and the brand of the Las Vegas Raiders, and like you got all these different people that are throwing, things at you. So I guess, how do you manage that? Is it time management? What is that skill that you have, Will, that helps you manage these types of situations and partnerships?
Yeah, it's a little bit of time management, or it's not a lot. It's a lot of time management, and not letting it become too big. You can't get your goal overnight, right? So it's chipping away at something, and it's being intentional and detail oriented, and making sure that you're checking off the boxes in the right way, and doing things consistently, in order for it to not become overwhelming.
Next question comes from a student named Michael, and Jake kind of already alluded to this question, so I might kind of shift Michael's question just a little bit. But we talked about breaking news, how you respond to that. But your roles, you're not Adam Schefter, you're not trying to break the news necessarily. So can you kind of speak to the difference between, hey, the news breaks, the Raiders just hired Josh McDaniels, or whatever it may be, that big news that everyone's paying attention to, like, can you kind of talk about that process and how it's different for you, maybe if you were someone like Adam Schefter?
I think our perspectives probably change a little, or are different a little bit, in that it's not so important to be first. As an organization, I think it's important to be right. And I think that and you have to keep at the center of your mindset that you're tasked with speaking for the organization to a certain degree, whether it's you individually or department or whatever. There should be one voice in everything that you communicate. And I always say this, but really the voice is from this guy, the person on the shield. And it's not Will, it's not, anybody else on my staff or anybody in different departments. It's you have to keep at the center of everything you do that you want to do what's best for the Raiders first. And I think as long as you have that mindset, I think you can have success.
Next question I have is from Tara, a student from a Seattle University, graduate there. Curious about working in the NFL. I mean, you've got over a decade's worth of experience there. Like, what sticks out to you about, working for a franchise in the NFL compared to maybe other jobs? What's unique about it? What's something that students should pursue with that? What really stands out to you working in the NFL?
What stands out to me is I have an appreciation and a love of the pace of the NFL, and I also have a kind of a deep respect for the game and the tradition and the history. So to be able to be a small part of it, I think is something that I take a great pride in. And I think that's something that kind of motivates me to continually improve and to continually be, strive to be the best version of myself possibly, professionally. And I also enjoy that, that working in the NFL is football focused. And when I scale it back to the studs and why I do what I do and why I kind of embarked on this journey and really, fought to have a career in the NFL is because I love team sports. I love football. I love being around athletes. I love being around coaches. And I love winning. And that's kind of what drives me. Those are the kind of things that are unique about working for a franchise in the NFL, as opposed to working for, any other company out there or any other, profession or career.
I definitely want to thank you for answering all these questions that the students have submitted. Jerry alluded to it or mentioned it already, I guess. In the chat feature there on the YouTube stream, you can click the link, go straight to Will's LinkedIn. Definitely would love to encourage the students to connect with him. Send more questions, more meaningful questions. I'm sure when he has a spare moment, he'll take his time to respond to those. But I want to end here. And you mentioned you have a daughter that's in college, so similar age to a lot of these students that are tuned in. If you were to provide a piece of advice to a college student that's looking to get into let's just say the sports industry, work in the sports world, what's that piece of advice on how they can prepare their resume or interview prep or whatever it may be? What's your piece of advice for those college students?
It's hard because a lot of people want to work in sports and it's a highly competitive industry. And I understand that. And not to say another cliche, but your best ability is your availability. So making yourself available, being willing to do that internship or do that volunteer experience to meet people, to gain experience, to prove to people that you can work and to prove that you're capable is really, really invaluable. So don't take that volunteer experience or that internship. As you mentioned earlier, maybe it's something that you don't desire a career in and you learn that along the way, but don't let that impact how you work and how you're available for these opportunities that come up. And opportunities are rare. They come up and you have to take advantage of them. So, preparedness, as we mentioned before, and also making yourself available to experiences and to things that are out there because it's all around us. You have to have a clear enough mindset to identify it and understand that maybe I'm not where I want to be right now, but this is part of me getting to where I want to be.
I think that's great advice. Hopefully the students were taking notes and they can take something from that, personally. But again, thank you on behalf of myself, the students, for being a part of the program today, Will. And I'm going to send it back to Jake because I think he's got one or two things to wrap things up with
Nathan,
us.
Thank you. And I want to thank all the students for taking the time to tune in and to ask me their questions. And like you mentioned, please don't be shy. Contact me. I get back to everybody as best as I can. And it might not be for right away, but I will get back to you. And I'm always happy to speak with students and provide any type of advice or wisdom that I can. So
there's the door, students. It's open. Take the opportunity there. Before I get into my next question here, Will, you did mention one thing I want to touch on. You said, you just like to win. And I think at the Raiders, the mantra, the old Al Davis mantra, just win, baby. I think that falls right in line with what you said there. A couple more questions. I want to talk here. And you don't have to go in depth because I know that there probably had to be so much. I can't even come up with a word to describe the amount of work that it takes for moving a franchise from one city to another. But for you, what were some of the challenges? Name one or two for you and your role specifically with a franchise moving from Oakland to Las Vegas.
Yeah, well, initially, now remember we announced we were approved for relocation in March of 2017, but we didn't actually relocate until the 2020 season. So we spent 3 seasons in Oakland. So really, the challenging part for me was managing 2 home media markets that were in separate states. So it was, the football team was in Oakland and we were doing the day-to-day and everything that was going on in Oakland with the team and facilitating the media and the Bay Area media and everything. And then we were also getting regular coverage from Las Vegas media as well. And we were also doing a lot of community relations events and business events in Las Vegas. So you were really kind of split in 2 different places, which is unique. I don't know if a team has ever done that before, announced a relocation and then stayed in the place for 3 years. So that had its own balance and challenges as that came. And then the second challenge was, unfortunately, we relocated during a COVID year, so it wasn't as fans couldn't come to the games. We weren't really able to engage because of the restrictions and everything else that we all went through during the COVID period. And so that came with its own challenges as well. So we were playing in Las Vegas. but we were delayed in really arriving in the market and really kind of touching and interacting with our fans and our media and everything that typically goes with an NFL season or introducing an NFL franchise. So those were a couple unique challenges for sure.
I think unique is an understatement when you put it that way, for sure. So a couple more things before we wrap up. We like to do a little fun segment. We have some rapid fire questions we have for you. You ready for those?
Ready.
All right. Number one, LinkedIn, great way to network or just another social media app?
Great way to network.
Number two, GPA on a resume, yes or no?
Wow, I go back and forth with this. I actually discussed this with my daughter. I would say yes. Yes, if you are still in school or a very, very recent graduate. I think after a year, after you have a level of experience under your belt, I don't think it's necessary.
All right. Number three, social media accounts, public or private?
Private.
All right.
Unless you're representing the organization.
Okay. Jeans at work, all day, every day, never, or only on Fridays?
It's tough because I've adapted the football wardrobe. So we, in training camp, we're outside a lot, obviously, for practices. So we're outside for 2-3 hours, and it's like 110 degrees out. So we've gotten a little casual around here. But I think if you're having a meeting or if you're doing events with the business side of the staff, I think there's an appropriate wardrobe for sure.
Coin toss, heads or tails?
Tails, never fails.
And lastly, you score a touchdown, your go-to touchdown celebration.
Wow. Hand the ball to the referee.
Keep it simple. All right. Well,
I'm a PR guy. I'm in the background. No, the camera shouldn't be on me.
Very true. Before we wrap up, again, want to echo the thanks that we've said many times today already for being part of the program. We know that we said before we started today, the NFL doesn't stop on a Friday at noon for us to host Before the Snap. We know that there's probably some story out there that could be being worked on right now. So we appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be a part of the program. And with that, we like to wrap up with one final question, which kind of overarches everything we've talked about today. So many good pieces of information, but students can remember one thing that they heard today, one thing when they're watching this video down the road. What's that one piece of advice you want them to walk away with today?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go back to Nathan's last question too. Your best ability is your availability. Make yourself available. Learn as much as you can, get as many experiences as you can, and build on that.
All right, with that, we're going to wrap up this installment of the Pro Football Hall of Fame series Before the Snap today, featuring Will Kiss, the Senior Director of Media Relations with the Las Vegas Raiders. Will, again, thank you so much for being a part of the program today.
Jacob, thanks so much. Thank you, Nathan. I really appreciate it.
We thank you so much for being a part of the program. As always, with everything that we do here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, viewers, make sure you're watching, you're liking, subscribing, commenting, following, whatever it might be, to all the Pro Football Hall of Fame social media channels, as well as the Raiders and their PR team, to stay up to date with all the great things that they're doing there in Las Vegas. Next program, we're going to take some time off here, I think. Our next program is going to be on October 6th here with Kara Kawakami, who works in sales with the Minnesota Vikings. So we're touching all the different jobs that we have out there in the NFL, from communications. Now we're going to talk about how we get people into that stadium that Will gets to sit in every Sunday to talk about what they do. So as we said at the beginning and just mentioned there, the game of football doesn't just take place on Sundays, Mondays, and Thursdays. It is a pretty much 365-day-a-year job, even on Christmas and Thanksgiving, all those important holidays, many, many hours a day. And Will, the game of football, and truly even us here at the Hall of Fame, would not be what it is today without your impact. So again, thank you so much for everything you do for the game of football, everything you've done and will continue to do for us here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And truly, thank you for being a part of the program today. All right. With that, we're going to wrap up the program today. We hope to see you right here back next Friday for our next program